Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Matt Schmidt and I guide people to heal themselves. In this video, I'm going to be discussing a little bit about my journey. Um, I had debated I was going back and forth about whether or not to actually post this because I'm known for helping people to heal themselves. Well, the interesting thing is, I got stuck in my own healing, and we'll be discussing all the lessons I learned from that along the way. But I really think that this will help other people who are facing a lot of these things. I was kind of debating about whether or not to post something like this because I didn't want people to see like this shadow side of stuff. But I think if I'm being like open and honest, like people will be able to resonate with that and really get more out of their own healing. A lot of us compare to other people, and they see some people that have like once in a while these like instant healings or whatever, and they're like, well, why isn't this happening to me? And I think that holds people back. So I think sharing my story gives people the courage in recognizing that this is a process. There are more layers to stuff than just what we see on the surface. So that's my inspiration for posting this, and feel free to chime in with your own results. If you've been stuck in your life and stuff you've figured out, I think it's important that other people can see that others go through these same things. All right, so we're going to be talking a little bit about my journey with surgery. So this is a tough one because I normally guide people to heal themselves. I've healed a lot of stuff in my own life. This one didn't happen. It did, but not in the way that I expected. So I had a hernia, and that's where an organ or tissue pops out through, I guess, the tissue that normally keeps it in, I guess, in general terms. In this case, it was my intestines, and it was popping through the lining of around my stomach. So this happened, I don't know, in spring, right in the beginning of summer. And for a time, I would just keep pushing it back in and go about my day. And in that time, like, yeah, I can heal this. I know how the game works. It's pretty easy. I've healed all this other stuff. Yeah, let's do this. So I tried to figure out what it was telling me, like on my own. I've worked through a lot of layers on my own. And the cool part is, I wouldn't trade this experience for anything in the world. I have done more personal growth because of this one little thing than anything else so far to date. Like this is a push to do this, and to go inward and really explore a lot of things that I didn't even realize were bothering me. And we'll talk about some of those lessons and some of the parts of the things that popped up. The first layer of this was there was a sexual component. There was a time when I wouldn't even been able to say that, but in my household, we didn't mention the word sex. It was a dirty word. We didn't openly discuss it. So even though I'm in a committed relationship, I still had a problem talking about anything sexual with my partner. So part of that was me working through that. And I was like, okay, that's it. I got it. We sat down, we had a talk. I felt great. This like weight was lifted. That wasn't it. I was like, oh man, it's just taking a while to integrate. So, no, there was actually like, I was like, okay, man, there's more layers to this. Maybe there's something I haven't uncovered. So the next layer was around my grandparents. I don't really have that much of a memory of my grandparents, even though they're around. We didn't have much of a relationship, but it was more how it affected the people in my family, most specifically my mom. And I was hanging on to a lot of anger from that, because of the way that they made her. Even though I know how things work, I was still subconsciously hanging on to a lot of anger about that. So part of that, the next layer of that was hanging on to that anger, or releasing that anger and letting it go. So I actually did one of my own videos that I made for other people about tearing up the contract. So that's where you can separate from people in your life. Like, if you worked on something and you can't really get past it, then you can release that person and release the other emotions around that. Because this other person isn't around where I can go talk to them. So they're not available. So yeah, I did that, released that, felt great. My dad came over and we actually did like a mock thing where what I was gonna say to my grandpa if I had a chance to talk to him, because he's kind of on his way out, and he had been coming to me in dreams, and I thought I was supposed to like work this out, but it takes two people to work stuff out. So the nice thing about this is I could actually work through the layers of that. So Felt really good about that. Still wasn't it. I'm still having this, I got it kind of limited my physical activity. At least to go, I like to go out like foraging and stuff like that. I had to like shut that down or do it very minimally. That kind of limited how long we could go out, or if I'd go for walks with my family, because I'd be sitting there just pushing this thing in or holding, holding it in, and it was like in my pelvic region, so that looks great. You're walking around, like, um, but yeah, so nothing really changed. I'm like, all right, well, maybe there's another layer to it, but something I'm missing. So I met with one of my friends who does kind of the same work that I do, and we went through a past life where I was trampled by a horse, and we released a horse stepped on me in the exact same spot in a battle, and I could feel like my hip and everything get better, but that was only one layer to it. Like, okay, it still persisted. I've had other like all kinds of stuff. I was throwing everything I knew at it. I'm not gonna lie. This is like a 5-month process of doing every single thing I knew. I'm like, oh, maybe it's this, maybe it's this, and healing like generational stuff, using like sound therapy, using EFT, so emotional freedom technique, where you use like tapping and stuff like that to have your body release the emotions around that. Um, I was doing everything that I knew. I even tried a bunch of stuff I'd never even heard of. Had like some psychic surgery and all this other stuff. I was literally trying everything. I'm like, there's just got to be something I'm missing, and did another like healing with like some angels and light beings and all this stuff for in this like healing space. And after all that, I'm like, what the heck am I missing? I tried everything I knew. I really feel for you guys that are struggling out there and frustrating, because like I know how the game works. Like I should be able to do this easy, right? Right? That wasn't the case. It was so frustrating. So this is like months and months of going like, okay, there's just maybe I'm just missing one thing, you know. And finally, I got to a point where I don't even remember what I was doing, but it came forward that the healing has been done. It's already been done. I just wasn't integrating it. I'm like, well, crap. Usually when I'm working with a person, the thing that holds people back from integrating the changes that we make is fear. Like, what am I afraid of? I'm not really afraid of anything, am I? Yeah, I was. I had a huge fear. Because I teach so many people to do this and guide people to do this, all that fear that came up was, well, if I can't do this, who does this make me? Who am I to tell people that they can heal themselves when I can't even heal myself? I was putting so much pressure on myself that I actually ended up in the emergency room. This got so bad because I was like, the pressure just kept building and building, and even though I wasn't aware of it at the beginning, by the time it got to this point, it was like, even though I knew it was there, I couldn't get past it. Because I'm like, well, people are gonna think I'm a fraud. What about this? And it's like, all those thoughts came up, and that a single thing blocked my own healing. The other thing that came up was that I believe in other people more than I believe in myself. It's like, oh crap. Like, this is so frustrating. You have no idea. So yeah, this is awesome. This is like going on like 5 months. And then all that pressure built up, pressure enough where it popped out one day and wouldn't go back in. That landed me in the emergency room. Long story short, I had, well, yeah, there's also this like fear of not healing, I guess, was the big thing. Fear of not healing. Well, if I can't do this, then yeah, then all my work is like, like everything I did to this point, um, yeah, so once I got past those layers of fear, and I don't know if I got past them. I just eventually, I think I finally surrendered. I thought, oh, the other part too is I thought by scheduling an appointment that would like that would be me surrendering. So I scheduled an appointment for surgery. I scheduled it like a month or two out, thinking like, well, I'll have this healed by this. I'll walk in there and they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, what happened to this? It's gone. That didn't happen. And most people wouldn't even make a big deal about this. Like literally, it was like a 45-minute surgery. I was in and out the day of, like in and out the same day. Really was not that bad. In the grand scheme of things, it really wasn't that bad. Most people wouldn't even like have thought twice about this, but for me, this is a big deal. So going through this, I actually got to see the bigger picture, and there was like, I'm not even touching on all the lessons in this. These are some of the big ones though. Okay, so I had surgery, so part of that was actually giving me that perspective. I work with a lot of people who are going through this process. I've never had surgery, never been really in the hospital for any like major surgery or anything like that. Never had a broken bone. Um, so part of that was actually going through that experience, and we're here for the experience. So and I see the free will could have gone either way with this, but like part of that was me having that experience. I can't relate to someone that's like in the hospital going through these things if I haven't had my own experience. Um, so not having surgery before, that was kind of the experience. The other thing was, as most of you know, I came from a very strongly medical background. I was in school for most of my life, and very scientific minded, very medical um, background and perspective. And doing this work, I've shifted so far the other way in the way that I see things that I completely discounted anything that I knew before this. And that's not what that's that wasn't the right thing to do. So it's almost like a pendulum, and I swung like way far the other way and be like, oh yeah, it's all just crap now. No, really, it's the merger of these areas. So in the same way that the medical field is merging with some of these new holistic approaches and being like, oh yeah, some of this stuff is useful. This can actually help people with this. It's non-invasive. Part of me is recognizing that there's a time and a place for all of this. When you need it, it's there for you. And I think that was a really beautiful lesson. So the other thing was part of it to see how powerful our beliefs are and how powerful we are as individuals in doing what we want, but also in blocking our own healing. That was really an eye opener, especially when you're like, I know how the game works. Why isn't this happening? And I think that was really powerful to go through. So, yeah, be kind to yourself. Some of this stuff can happen instantly because a lot of times you're past it. But this also is a process. You came here for the experience. Sometimes the disease and illness is a catalyst for your spiritual growth. And there's always a bigger perspective, always a bigger lesson. Um, all in all, in the end of this, after going through all this and being on the other side of this, I wouldn't trade any of these experiences for anything else in the world. Like it was perfect. I would do it again. Like plan it out again. It was so great. So much came out of this one little thing. You wouldn't believe it. So once I acknowledged that, went through the experience, I healed super fast. I mean, it was probably I think 2 days and I was back working again. Granted, I just sit and listen to people, but I mean, I felt good. My body was like rejuvenated, recharged, and I felt pretty good. And by a week, I felt like pretty much back to normal and better than I had before the surgery. So, pretty amazing. Once that shift happened, I healed like so quick. So, yeah, if you feel free to share some of your experiences in the comments. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next video.